Hello. So I want to just tag along on the last video about your purpose not being something that needs to support you, and and if you're struggling, you might be lucky that your purpose is something that actually does support you really well financially, and that's your job and that's your everything. I wasn't, and it's still I'm not in that category of people or circumstances and conditions or whatever. And you may know it too. So I was saying that basically, then in that case, find a day job that allows you to do your purpose and to live purposefully every day of your life. I'll find a way to have a job with an income that's sufficient. And I spoke of other things anyway. Today, I just wanted to talk about if a scenario where you can't when this day job is a full-time job and it's a 5 day a week now, and so this becomes more difficult maybe to live your purpose at least as much as you'd like to. But I would say two things there, well, three things. First, why to maybe think about that you are maybe considering it, looking at it wrongly, maybe in the sense that your tiredness and demotivation that after your work you feel is actually not to do with the little time you have left, which is just weekends and evenings, but actually the sense of I can't be asked, I'm just too knackered of all that tiredness is to do with the unhealthy, even toxic, and that's if any of you is in 9 to 5 office jobs or corporate world or any kind of organization that has departments, the sort of more traditional businesses. I'm sure you're familiar with this of toxic office politics. And God, did I have a good, unfair, no, fair share of those in my life, in my work life experience. And so I'm really consider myself like a expert. Well, expert in terms of I have been there and done it so many times. So my first tip is like consider that maybe it's that's tiring you, not the actual time you have left. Because, and before I go on to other two, because when I had a job that was actually like extremely tiring physically, um, like it was 4 days a week, but it was full days, like 8 hours a day, and it was 4 days a week, admittedly. But still, I was on my feet. It's my last day job that I loved so much, but I was exhausted. I literally just, oh my God. I mean, we have since moved into this new place, and this whole place is set up with me to be able, wherever I sit down, I could put my feet up, even though I haven't been in that job now for 6 months. Still, I just can't. It's like a reflex by now. And I'm at that age, I suppose. Anyway, my point is, I was exhausted physically, but I was so energized because the whole day of work was actually pleasant and sometimes fantastic, or at worst, the worst was just pleasant. So I had all this, and I was always able to think, about my stuff. So by the time I got home, I was so happy to be working on my stuff, right? So it's not physical tiredness. It's not the fact that it's 8 hours. It's the content of those 8 hours that drains you. Now, two other, or maybe is it two or one? Okay, I'm not sure. So the way I dealt with in the past, when I had those 9 to 5, 5 days a week in very unpleasant, toxic office politics kind of jobs, I I did two things. So it is two things, isn't it? First, I was always stunned and flabbergasted, and always used to say this will one day be considered barbaric way of working, and barbaric way of living. And what I mean by that, or why I thought that, is because we spend 8 hours a day, at least 8 hours, depends on which country you are in, and whether those 8 hours are usually 12 or I don't know, 6 or something. But still, with people you haven't chosen to spend the time with, that there wouldn't be your natural choice because you don't like them, or you don't have anything in common with them, or they're downright awful, or just difficult, or whatever, or just like 8 hours, unless 8 hours with anyone is fucking nightmare, absolute nightmare. Unless it's like your absolute soulmate, and God, no, no. And I'm lucky, but after a long time, I'd rather that place where I have someone in my life who is who I can be 8 hours with and happily ever after. And but these people are not. So my first thing was to own that and just to kind of not feel bad about. I would not be horrible to anyone, although I'm sure I had some conflicts definitely where words were said and we were not kind to each other. There were not many, but there were definitely a few in however many 20 years of my living like that. Is it 12, 20 or 10? No, I lived 10 years like that probably. Anyway, so is to actually look at those people, consider them as they're just, I don't want to bring them home with me. They're not my people. They don't matter to me. They don't mean anything to me. That doesn't mean you wish them any harm, goodness me. No, never. In fact, wish them well, genuinely wish them well from the bottom of your heart. But just like consider them as just absolute bare necessities in your life. So when you kind of strip them down of any significance to you, and they trigger you left, right, and center, and I'll talk in a second about that. But when you start considering them and looking at them as not friends to be, someone you socialize with, even if you sometimes go to those office drinks or whatever, even if eventually, but this needs to be taken slowly and wisely and carefully, some of them become friends. And I have had friends that outlasted jobs because they were genuine friendships. But be very careful who those people are. Don't if you want to play politics and strategy to kind of get up the ladder, then you have to play the dirty game, and then this is not video for you. But if you're not interested in that kind of playing, then just consider them as really just bare necessities, nuisances, something you have to put up with, and basically kind of strip them of all that power they may have for you. They're insignificant. They really are. Like I said, wish them well, but they're insignificant. However, they will be triggering you because they'll be stepping on, and that's for you to work from at home on. Not easily said, or rather not easily done at all. I know for sure, not from my skin felt experience. But so the way I dealt with that, so two things. I still worked on stuff at home, journaled, trying to figure out why it is that something bothers me. But what I didn't do at work is engage with these people as if that matters what they just triggered about me, as if it's their problem, their responsibility. No. Unless it's something proper illegal and just awful, like they're shouting at you. But I found in many cases that there's no HR department that would actually do much about a boss shouting at you. Thankfully, I didn't have many. Maybe I had one. My point is, so the trigger pieces are difficult, the most difficult ones. So you remember that it's not about you, it's their issue, but the fact that you got triggered is your problem. So you work on that at home, in privacy of your home, journaling, even having therapy or whatever. However, and this is the biggest piece, when you get back to work, you don't engage, you don't bring that up. That's not for the you and someone else to sort out. And God, have I done it a few times, thinking, oh, we need to talk about this, and made things worse, and just didn't do anything good by doing that, right? Just didn't resolve anything and made things just more awkward. So my top advice, do not have those conversations. What you do instead, and this might sound silly, is I did this. I would watch, there was if anyone is in UK and is old enough to remember, there was this ridiculous, one of the worst soap operas ever done in England, called Family Affairs. But the reason I stuck with it, or rather it was the only one I watched, is because when it first came out, I was in England, and that was kind of something. And yeah, it was interesting when you start like that, and I watched it at the time, and then anyway, and it ended up, it was gone years. So I kind of saw its birth and death, which I thought it was always quite nice. It was called, did I say Family Affairs? And it was just ridiculous. But what I did, and what I used that soap opera for, is to mimic behaviors that will deflect all those aggravations and all those people. Oh my God, it was literally like taking notes at a lecture, or at, any training, school, course, right? Taking notes in a course, right? Literally, I wasn't literally taking notes, but I was mental notes. And I would just almost like binge watch, so that that those behaviors become second nature. I wouldn't literally act out. It was just absorption. It was like, mimicry, I think it's called, when you sort of look at something and look at it enough time that you can see how it's done. And I tell you, it did wonders. That wasn't me. That was complete fake. I'd go to work, back to work. Who cares? That's my point. When you strip these people of significance to you, to your authenticity, that's not a place to be authentic at work. Those kind of sad, barbaric places, however much they're not literally barbaric, but in their premise and in their dynamic and model, oh my God. I have no children or therefore grandchildren, but if I did, I would just hope that they live in a world where that work is gone. I believe so. It will be, probably. It will be, I'm sure. But it's just awful. So if you're in that place, like I say, you are fake. Absolutely. You just give them a face just to keep deflecting. And it works a charm. It really does. Because you're acting. So you're not really you don't feel shit about yourself. That's the thing. When we don't know we are acting, when we think we are being authentic, but we actually are not because we are people pleasing, but we think that's just the right thing to do. This is you're faking. You are faking it completely. Therefore, you're not invested in the truth, in their response to you, in the sense that, but that's not me. Am I being no? You're creating atmosphere that's actually helping anyone, so there's no conflict, or it's been reduced to a minimum, and you go home so cleaned up, as in, like, because these people are not your life, are not you. You are not, when you're there, you are not you, if that's what it requires, and that's fine. You make peace with all of that, and you are at peace. You really are at peace, and then you have all that energy left. It's like taking clothes off that don't fit you. You must have sometimes been in those positions when you wore shoes that were like, too tight or too small, and the relief and the joy of, like, when you take them off. Okay, maybe it's not the best example because sometimes it can actually hurt, but let's say it doesn't hurt, just a little bit of tightness, and you get home. I often felt like that, actually, just any kind of clothes that were a bit more too formal. I often had to wear more formal clothes than I would otherwise, which is kind of really comfy clothes around the home. And there was that sense of, I can just relax now. So yeah. So that's the kind of metaphor. It's like you come home, you take that you off, that fake you, that it's your work you, so that you keep the peace, so you don't get triggers to, dismantle you every time they happen. You don't allow that to happen. You just keep a distance and act in a way that because you watched on a soap opera. Soap opera usually are a good example for this, because that's how people are. Most people are, or majority, certainly those toxic office politics. And you just keep everyone at bay, but you're being okay, meaning you're keeping a peace. You're keeping peace, but you're doing it so that you are free when you get home. And it's okay that you are faking it, that you really think differently, you don't agree with any of it, but it's not, it's just someone else's business. It's how they do. So if they think that the project needs to happen this way, let them. You put your words forward, and they just shout at you or whatever. Who cares? And that's my point. If this job is not your purpose, and if it is your purpose and you're having all this stuff going on, then I would question whether that is your purpose, or whether that particular container eye business is the right vessel for your purpose. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful, and see you tomorrow.